Right.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, that should be working all right. Yeah, can somebody say something?
1,
Testing.
2.
Perfect.
Hello?
Thank you. Yep, it is picking up. So, yep, I'm on the new 2022 339F1. I believe that's the latest one we should be
Oh, they already
using.
moved up? Wow.
Yeah.
Alright, cool.
Yep. Yeah, the old one will still work, but yeah, this is the one we need for shader graph, I believe.
Ah.
So you
Yes.
need to
Okay,
have
for
this
3,
one if you're going to
3,
use
4.
shader graph. So it's exactly the same as installing anything else. It's Window, Package Manager. Go into your Unity registry here. Just do a search for shader graph. It'll come up. I haven't even completed the word shader, and there it is. And just hit the install button up here. Mine's already installed, so I've only got a remove button. But that's all you do. Literally, it's as simple as that. So you'll then find, once you've got it installed, if you create a shader, which I do just by right-clicking down here and create, you'll then have shader graph. And you want to choose built-in, and then you've got lit or unlit. Most cases I use lit for most things, unless I want emission or something. So lit shader graph, we can give it a name. I'm just going to call it blah because I don't know what to call it. And when you double click on it, it'll open up this window, and it's very similar to Amplify. The only difference is that whenever you want to expose a property that you need to adjust in the material, you add it over here in a list. So for instance, I could just decide that this shader is going to be a color and just change it here. But when I come to make a material out of it, let's just add something so you can see what I mean. And we'll just right click on the shader and create a material. Drag it onto there. Yes, it's red, it's worked, but over here, there's nothing I can adjust. I can't change the color. So to do that, instead of this, we would just over here say, well, I want a property I can edit, and you would choose the correct property you want, if it's a float or a vector 2 or a texture you want to be able to plug in, whatever. I've just chosen color, and you bring it in here and you plug it in. That's the only difference. You save that, and now we've got something we can change.
Excuse me, the screen is not showing. How do I get to see the screen?
Rejoin.
Yes,
I have
rejoin
done
the
that 2
space.
times.
Try
Okay.
turning off the headset and turning it back on.
Yeah, maybe that should work. I'll try. Thanks.
No problem. The only other thing is the fact that this screen is still the one that's hosted on Glitch. So if he's having a glitch issue, I really need to get it moved
I
over.
have a glitch issue, but it is working. But
yeah. Okay.
I just can't go to glitch sites.
Yeah. Okie doke. Right. So we've done that. I'm just going to delete these because, yeah. And we'll just set that back to the default material for now. If I can find it. Default. There we go. Because I don't like that pink. It bothers me when it's broken. So that's the basic premise, how to do a shader. Last week we did the pulse shader, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing in shader graph.
Oh, cool.
And I'll say that as well, but for this, we'll get rid of that one for now. I'm just going to delete everything, just set up a basic scene. So we'll have a plane, just make it a bit bigger, apply the scale. I'll go into edit mode and select these 2 edges. We'll extrude them on the Z up a bit so we've got like a floor and some walls. That'll do. And then we'll make another one of those little crate things, actually, because it was quite easy to do. Scale on the X, 2, zoom in. Just bring
Hello,
that down a
Barbara.
bit. And then snap it to the floor. And then we want to bring in a curve, path curve, delete all the vertices, so X and V, and then we can draw a new curve on the surface. And I'm just going to wiggle it around a bit, have it go over the crate and over here. That'll do. And then turn the resolution down a bit, into geometry, turn it down here as well, and then we'll start increasing the thickness of our cable. I think that'll do. And then we've just got to clean it up now, just make it work properly. So this is where we need to select most of those, but not all of them, just the ones that's on the floor, and bring it up a bit. Incidentally, if you didn't know, you can use your arrow buttons on your keyboard to move stuff once you've hit G and enter to apply, so it's not cutting through the floor now. We need to fix these a bit. So this one we'll just maybe rotate it on the Y a bit. And I think what we'll do is also change the handle type to automatic. There we go. Fix this because this is pretty janky. Maybe move it up a little bit. Move it along a little bit. Make that a little bit of a softer curve. I'm not being too accurate with this. I just want it to kind of look okay-ish, I guess. Something like that, maybe. That's a bit of a tight curve as well, but never mind, it'll do. That'll do for now. So, as usual, when you're wanting to bring a curve in, if you need to ever adjust it afterwards, don't convert it to a mesh, just duplicate it, hide your curve, and then you've always got a backup you can go to if you need to change it. So / to isolate it. We'll go to a bottom down view, which is bottom up view, which is Control and 7 on your numpad. Right click, convert to mesh, and then we can go to the mesh, select an edge that goes all the way along the curve, and we'll do U for UV, M for marker seam, and then select everything with a U for UV and U for unwrap. That'll do, I think. So if we go into UV edit, and we've then got this. And I know last week I told you about a plugin which I don't have in this version of Blender. This is 4.2, called Text Tools. So you can actually straighten all this up manually. So if ever you had a texture you wanted to apply to something and it wasn't following the UV properly because it's all wonky in here, you can straighten it up quite easily. The best way to do it is to find a square that is reasonably straightish. I'm just going to use this one here, I think. And make sure you're in vertex mode, I think. Doesn't really matter. And then, so this one I'm going to use. Select the top 2 vertices, right click and choose Align Auto, and do that with the bottom and the right and the left. So you can see that quad is now perfectly aligned. So if we then press 3 to go into face mode, select that face, and then L to select everything that's connected to it, you can then either hit U for UV or just pull the UV menu down. But U for UV is easier, and then just choose follow active quads. Okay, and that's the whole thing straightened up. Perfect. Oh, didn't mean to do that. So I'm just going to pop this right in the middle of my texture. And I don't know if you remember, but last week I also said because the lengths of the cables could be different, the pulses, the shader will behave differently. It'll be scaled differently on every cable. So I try and make every single cable the same thickness, the UV, the same width. So it doesn't matter about the length of it. So what I'm going to do is make it approximately one of these squares wide. And because one of these squares, for some reason, is divided into 8, God knows why it's not divided into 10, but there you go. I'm just going to align this right edge up to the very middle, this 4th line here. So I'll just scale it up. That'll do. And then you can see you've got a great big long thing. But that's that. So we're probably about ready. What I really need to do is just, do I need to unwrap my box? You know what, I'm not going to bother for now. I will when we come to do the next bit if we've got time. So we'll start with the floor. Just select that. Export selected objects into, I've got a test folder and shader graph tutorial. We're just going to call that floor. And then that one I'm going to call create. And that one I'm going to call cable. So now we can go into Unity and just bring in.
You have to separate them out, huh? As separate objects.
You don't have to, no. But if you're going to be applying separate materials to them, then yeah, it makes sense.
You have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So cable, create, and flow. I mean, I guess I could have. Yeah, right. I could have exported the scene as an FBX, and then they still would have shown up in here as separate objects, even though they were in one FBX file. That absolutely I could have done.
Okay.
But I didn't. Okay. So we'll just get rid of that cube. We'll bring in the floor, which we'll just turn around. We'll bring in the crate, and we'll bring in the cable. So there's all our objects. Now, I'm going to do a very, very basic colour shader, just like I did before for the floor and the crate. And then we'll do the pulse shader. So create, shader graph, built-in, lit shader. And I'm just going to call it basic colour. We'll just close that because we deleted it. So I'm just going to bring in another colour object and plug that in there. Save scene. And now I can just create a couple of materials, one for the crate and one for the floor. Crate, floor. The floor I'm going to make colour shall I make it? Like a dark red maybe? And the crate, I'm going to make a bluey colour. Something like that. And go. So now we just need a new shader graph. Oh, and I've done it wrong. Click the wrong thing. Right click, create shader graph built in. You could actually start with a blank shader graph, but when you do, you're then going to have to add the pipeline here, and we need it to be built in. So you've got to set all of that up yourself. I say set all of it up. It's literally a case of adding plus if you ever do click on the wrong thing. So I'm just going to rename this to Pulse. And then we're going to have a think about how we do it again. I can't remember. So the first thing we need to do is bring in the gradient that we created last week. Does that actually work? Is it in? Yes, it is. And then we'll
just dragged it right in there. Cool.
Yeah, you can. You can do the same with Amplify. Just drag it from here straight into Amplify. Okay. However, that's really more for visualization purposes. Once we actually add, for instance, our texture 2D kind of variable, I suppose, we're just going to call this pulse gradient. Oh, gradient. It's a gradient this week. Plug that into there. You'll see when I create a material out of it, pulse, that we've now got a pulse gradient
drag it over.
thing, and you've got to put it in again.
And then drag it over.
Yeah. I mean, we could set it up here where you can say the default, you can set a default texture that it'll always use whenever you create a material with it. Right. But yeah, for visualization purposes, it's easiest just to bring the whole thing in, the actual image itself, and it creates your texture 2D node. So we've got that. We need to make it work. Now in Amplify, there is a node called Panner. That's what we used last week to make it pan up and down. Shader graph doesn't have that. It's a bit different. Some of the nodes are different, so you have to kind of relearn them. So for this one, what it does have is a tiling and offset node, which we can use. So we just right click, choose create node. I'm just going to type in off for offset, and there it is, tiling and offset. We'll plug the output into the UV. And then the offset, we want it to offset on the Y because the X goes along and the Y goes up. So we want to actually move it so that it goes up or down on the Y. And to do that, we need to split these up. So we need another, we need a node called a vector2 node. So we've got X and Y there. We're just going to connect that to there. So now we can affect only one of these, which is the Y we want to do. And we're going to use a time node. So as time passes, that is going to be changing. You can see it moving there. So it's working. But we want to be able to control the speed. And to do that, we multiply it by a float. So we're going to create a float called speed. And we'll bring that in. And we multiply it. So create a multiply node. And we'll multiply that by that. And plug that in there. And it's going to be 0 to start. So our animation stopped. We can give it a default value of 1, say. So whenever you create a material, it'll always be at that speed, but then you can slow it down, speed it up, whatever. So we'll save that. We'll just make sure it's all working so far. So I'm going to drag my pulse material onto there. There's nothing happening at the moment. That's interesting. What have I done? Is that because it's just in the base colour? Hang on, am I using...
See?
Oh, there we go.
Gosh,
You
why
see?
your head so big?
I just need to plug me texture into there. So there we go. We've got it kind of working. We're getting there. So we'll go back to the pulse shader bit. We'll just drag these over here, give us a bit more room. So if we plug this now into emission, that should be making just the white bits glow and not the rest. This has currently got real-time light, I believe. So if we turn the intensity of this down, yeah. So everything else has got dark, but you can see the emissions working because that's still nice and bright. So we'll just turn that back up again for now. So we then want to decide, well, what colour is the pulse going to be? So we need to multiply that by a colour. So we'll add a colour and we'll call it pulse colour. Drag that in. Just put that there. Add another multiply node. Multiply that by that. We'll choose what colour that's going to be to start with. We'll just make it red. Plug that into the emission. Maybe.
Oh, it's pink.
It is pink, I know. Oh, that is. Delete that. Ah. Okay. Let's just choose that to 0 for now. I'm a bit confused about that. Let's try plugging that into there.
It just mixes the
Yeah,
white
There
and
we
red,
go.
it seems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay.
That's all the multiply node does, because black is 0 and white is 1. So if you multiply a colour by 0, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to change. So it only affects anything above 0. So white and all those shades of grey are turned red, but black isn't. So we'll just have a quick look at that. That's looking fine. Now you'll see I changed the smoothness to 0. You might actually want a bit of smoothness, in which case, and if it's something you want to be able to adjust, again, you just add a float. We'll call it smoothness. Because smoothness is usually a value of 0 to 1, you don't want it to go any higher, because it's either not smooth or fully smooth. Where we've got precision in, no, that's not where I want, mode default, you just choose slider, and then you've got a min and a max. It automatically puts in 0 and 1. Your default is automatically 0. So when we save it, I didn't add it. Lisa, you idiot. Let's pop it in, plug it into smoothness, and then save it. You'll see we've now got a material with a smoothness slider, which we can adjust like that. But I don't want smoothness. I want it to be completely rough. So we're nearly there. We probably want to adjust the colour of the cable itself. And for that, if you remember from last week, I just used an add node and another colour. So I'm going to add colour, cable, colour. Drag that in. Create node, add. Plug that in there and that in there. We'll give it a test. Make it, I don't know, that kind of colour. And then we should Now, you know what it is? I'm a bit confused about this. Why is... hang on a sec, I'm thinking. Let's just have a look here and see what I've done. Where's me pulse thing I did here? I'm wondering if it's because I haven't set it up exactly the same. I've just popped the colour in there. Ah, okay. Let's just try that. It's still not the same. And yet it's set up the same. Built-in, lit, opaque, front, auto, L equal, tangent. How strange. Am I looking at the same thing? Time, multiply, vector 2. The pulse length will add after. Simple texture. And then colour into there, and then just a colour into the base colour. I wonder if I need to change this to HDR. Sorry about this, I'm a little bit bamboozled as to why it's not doing what it did in me other shader. Cable colour. What's that colour there? That's that one. That's the pulse colour. That's the cable colour. That's going into emission. That's going into base colour. Let's just stick that into there. If I make that blue, what happens? Not a lot. How bizarre. If anybody's got any ideas, please let me know, because I have not a bloomin' clue. Let's try just creating one more. Shader graph, built in, lit, pulse. Again, pulse 1. Drag that in. Set me smoothness to 0. Offset. Vector 2. Time. Is that not exactly, it's just the fact that that is so, it's not as bright. I'm trying to remember how to change a colour to an HDR here. Let's have a look. Come on. Okay. Well, basically, the whole point, well, HDRs are usually used for HDRI images, like your backgrounds, your skyboxes and stuff, because it actually acts as if it emits light, and you can actually go beyond the normal color like parameters. So what I'm going to do is just affect this color a little bit, make it a bit brighter or a bit darker, a bit brighter. No, we'll not, because it's affecting the gradient. We'll leave it as it is. Sorry about that. Right. So one of the things we need to do is also, well, we don't have to, but this was something else I added afterwards that I thought was really cool, and that was the size of the pulse. And combined with the speed, you can get some pretty cool things going on. So I'm just going to add another float and call it pulse size. Bring that in. And we need another vector 2. I could have just duplicated the one I had, but there you go. So we can split the tiling up, and we want to affect the tiling, the thickness of the line, so it's on the Y. So we want to affect this. Just plug that into there, and we'll give it a size of 1 as a default value. So now, when we go to our material, we've got pulse speed and pulse size. And if I was to increase the size of that, we get loads of them, but they're going really slow, so we can speed it up a bit. Or we can make them really, really small. The value really small, so the pulse gets bigger, and we can slow it down a bit. And if you make it if you make it 0, it like just flashes, which is quite cool. Or you can make it a nice small amount, like 0.1, and slow it right down, which is quite cool. 0.05. Looks like an electric thing going through the cable. So yeah, that's quite cool. As I say, it works absolutely fine. All done with shader graph. And it's free. And if you haven't got it, why not? Get it installed, because it's awesome. There are...
So you use the red color as a pulse, but if you change the settings, you can use the bluish color as a pulse as well, right?
I could do. I could make it a darkish blue cable, and
No. I mean, if you make the red color more bigger, a longer pulse.
Longer, yeah. Right.
Then it will be like okay.
Something like that, you mean?
Okay, in my brain I have a different view.
Right.
Yeah, so if you make the pulse longer, so the darker color looks like that's the pulse instead.
Right. Well, what you'd need to do in that case is probably invert this image so that the black bits are white and the white bits are black, if you wanted to do that. And all you would do is exactly the same as in Amplify. You use a 1- node, and we'll plug that into there and that into there, and we should get the opposite effect. So now we've got a glowing cable with a dark pulse going through it.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll just disable that for now. Yeah, so as I say, what time is it? We've got 10 minutes. One of the other things, is anything anybody has questions about or would like me to expand on in this shader at all? or maybe go over how to install shader graph again, or there are 1,000,001 videos on YouTube. I mean, seriously, if you do a search for shader graph tutorial, you'll get, it's not like Amplify where it's really hard to find out how to do stuff. There are so many shader graph tutorials on here. This one's awesome. I tried this the other day. Make a portal that glows with some particles coming out of it. That would just be so cool. Shader graph introduction, shader graph, creating water in shader graph. Now, a lot of these are specifically for URP, so be careful. Most of them are. Which is
What does that mean?
URP is the Universal Render Pipeline. Banter doesn't use the Universal Render Pipeline. It uses the built-in pipeline. So if it says it's specifically for URP, give it a try. There are some things you might not be able to get to work because in URP you also had things like post-processing effects for bloom and stuff like that, and vignettes and things like that. If it tells you to set up post-processing features and whatnot, just miss that bit out and you'll not get exactly the same effect, but it'll be good enough.
But if you are comparing shader graph with Amplify shader, which one is the most efficient, powerful, or efficient? Yeah, which one would you recommend between those if you have access to both of them?
I honestly don't know. The difference really, the main difference between the two is shader graph doesn't create high-level shader language files like Amplify does. It creates shader graph files, which are specific to Unity. So you can only share those files with somebody else who uses Unity and shader graph and can use those shaders. When you compile it, it compiles it correctly exactly the same way as Amplify. So you upload it, it behaves exactly the same way. But Amplify actually creates high-level shader language files, which you can share with anybody who can use those files, which is just about everyone, because it's pretty much an industry standard. Just about every game engine will be able to use it. So Amplify is much, much more shareable, shall we say, whereas shader graph is specifically for Unity. But other than that, they are the only real gripes I have about it. I wouldn't say there's any difference in performance because my understanding is they compile exactly the same. You'll still get the same result when you actually build a world out of it.
But can you use? Can you ask, for example, ChatGPT to make a shader graph as you can do with Amplify?
No.
No.
I mean, it might give you instructions on how to set up the nodes, but it won't actually write you a file, a high-level shader language file, like the code, like it can do now that you can use in games. Which, to be honest, if you're on the free plan of ChatGPT, it's not all that great anyway. It's okay for basic things, but it's not fantastic.
Yeah, I have access to them.
Yeah. Okay. Can you just give me 1 second? I've just had a...
Of course.
Oh, there we go. I'm just saying, I've just got a message from you. I'm wondering what it is. It's literally just arrived on my phone asking if I'm coming along to my event. How good's that? Oh, man. So, yeah, get yourself onto YouTube and have a play with some of these. And I would highly recommend this one. I've already done this one. Let's just save this. I don't know where I've put it, of course. Was it in here? I don't think it was in here. It might have been in here. Don't know. Oh, I think it might have been this one. perhaps. Yeah, there we go. And I'll just click on the particles there as well. So we've got swirly particles that's coming out the front and back of it. It kind of changes between direction.
I have one more question, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
So with amplify shaders, you can use it to make like the portals in Banter, but with the live camera, right?
Not sure what you mean.
The portals are that you can look behind the scene without going inside. Or we can take it later.
I see what you mean. Yes, you can absolutely do that in Amplify. I'm pretty sure that's how Aline did it
Okay.
anyway. I'm not 100%
What was the
certain how.
question?
I think it's using the parallax node, but yes, you can absolutely do
Yeah,
it.
parallax. Yeah.
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 Shader Graph likewise also has a parallax node, but I've not played with it before in here. But I will do. I'm gonna
Maybe next week.
yeah, we'll have a look at it. Absolutely. Next week, I do also want to go into the. I don't know if you remember last week we also quickly, and I was going to cover that, but we didn't have time because I was late getting in. We talked about this Dream UV plugin and how awesome it is. So I'll try and concentrate specifically on that next week. We will be using Shader Graph again to set up the material for it. But I want to show you how to set it up as a basic to get it actually working, because I mean I can quickly show you. We've still got like a few minutes. If I have a look here, perhaps. I'm not going to go into how and it works creating the edgeway setup where it detects the edges and gives it some damage. That's just a mask I've created so we can use it in the shader. Because, and the reason I'm not going to go into how it works is because I don't really know myself yet. I'm still learning. I literally followed a tutorial, which I'll happily put the link to in Discord. But I know it's using the bevel node, so you have to be in cycles to see it because bevel only works with cycles. So it detects edges, and instead of a bevel, we're applying a texture to it. And using the normals as a geometry input to create a dot product, which we're then adjusting the map range, and yeah, it's all confusing stuff. But the basic outcome is, if I get it hooked up properly, I got a green box with some metal shown through where it's supposed to look like the paint scratched off, and this is a bit kind of shiny and reflective. And then once we've set up the edgeway, we then set up something like this, where we've got a lot of cubes or boxes next to each other. So they've all got the edgeway applied. They're the right size. We bake all of this into a mask texture like this, and then this becomes our atlas, which we apply to any object we want after that. And we use the plugin to automatically adjust the UVs to make it fit. It's an absolutely amazing plugin. It saves so much time. I love it a bit. So we're going to go into that in more depth for definite next week and show you how to do
What was
one
that called
kind of.
again?
It's called Dream UV. You can find it
Dream UV.
up here. It's by a guy called Luke Bars, and it's on GitHub, github.com, Luke Bars Dream UV, and you can just download it here as a zip file and then install it as a zip file as a an add-on in Blender exactly as you would anything else. And it comes with a sample texture, and that's it applied automatically onto an object. And it just works. It's absolutely
Oh,
awesome.
that's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, there it is before it's applied, there it is after it's applied. It's just brilliant. So, as I say, yeah, we're going to do that. We'll do that next week and do some cool stuff.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Um,
I'm gonna be off for a little bit.
okie dokie. Okie dokie. See you. Talk to you later, Bart.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
So, I'm going to stop the recording now because I'm not going to cover much more in a minute, am I?